Hey guys, welcome. My name is JP, this is Kolio Kolev, and tonight we want to talk to you about Bitcoin. I mean, there's so much hype around Bitcoin, and we just want to give you the inside scoop in what is happening, technically speaking. And so the beginning, what is happening right now, and maybe the end, we don't know, right? With that being said, I'll pass on the word to Kolio. Let's do this.
All right, you guys, so really quick, I'm fired up. Welcome to Axie Unlimited. If you haven't heard of us before, you'll be hearing a lot about us in the coming weeks, months, years. But right here in front of me, as you guys can see on the screen, we have a chart, right? We have a chart of Bitcoin versus the US dollar. And basically what we're going to be talking about is, there's so much hype, right? There's so much hype all over the internet. The Bitcoin bubble, is it going to burst? Is something going to happen? Is it going to crash and tank and fall and everyone's going to lose all their money, right? So we're going to be covering the reality behind it, you guys, not from all the hype, right? But from a technical analysis standpoint, you guys, particularly on the charts, right? So all the news events that are happening obviously have some influential indication on Bitcoin, but this thing, this cryptocurrency, you guys, has been set for greatness, set for success ever since the start, and you can see it if you actually look at the charts, right? Technical analysis is going to reveal the truth. Fundamental analysis, you guys, which is essentially the news events, and various other occurrences that happen in the economy, quote unquote, are just kind of like the additional essence to it, right? So the truth comes from the technical analysis, which we're going to be covering right here. And let's start all the way back, you guys. Let's do this is going to be a full scope analysis, right? So we're going to start all the way back from the beginning as far as we can get. And notice I'm on the monthly chart. So each one of these candlesticks, if you're not familiar with technical analysis, that's all right. We're going to give you a quick lesson. Each one of these candlesticks currently, right now, represents one single month. Okay, a 1 month time frame. So this candlestick, the green candlestick right here, as you can see, the date below, all right, represents November of 2013. All right, and this is really the first noticeable, one of the first really noticeable takeoffs of Bitcoin. You guys, prior to that, it had very little popularity, very little knowledge, and even now, right? Even now, it's just getting adopted by the masses, slowly but surely, kind of stepping its way in there. It's been on the news a few times now. People are starting to notice it, right? What's happening? What is going on? And up until it really popped, there wasn't too much talk. Right? There wasn't too much talk. A few years ago, there was a few different news channels that aired that talked about it a little bit. Hey, Bitcoin, could this be this? Could this be the future? Blah, 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 blah. And then obviously, as you see here, after it hit this $1,100 mark, right? $1,100, it started to tank, and it popped all the way down to 184. But let's go back even deeper, right? Let's go back even deeper, you guys, even more so in the past. And we're going to hop on a weekly time frame in order to be really able to do this. So, The very first analysis that you can see, right, the very first candlestick is all the way back in 2011, right? So all the way back in 2011, you guys, is when it first began, all the way down, and here's where you can really notice it, down in the minuscule dollar amounts that we now see as, $7, $8, $9, but obviously hindsight's 2020. Right? If someone were to come up to you and say, hey, you should put, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 worth into this cryptocurrency, something you've never heard of before, and just wait on it, how likely are you to really do that? You're not very likely, right? Unless you really understand it, unless you really know and see the potential, the future, and just the applications that could be used in the future, you're not going to do that. So hindsight's 2020, and all these people that are saying, oh, it's a Bitcoin bubble, oh this, oh that, they don't know. Right? They're doing these random little predictions, and a lot of it's based on the fact that if it's a bubble, it's going to burst. They said that at $5,000. They said that at $2,000. They said it at $500. Right? It's been said consistently time and time again. So what's the reality behind it? The reality is the technical analysis. This is the pure essence and the pure soul of what Bitcoin is going to do forever. Period, right? And why is that? Well, let's hop into these charts and we're going to find out. And we're going to give, JP and I are going to give you guys kind of an idea as to how we are able to track it, monitor, see it, and really predict where it's going to go. So I first personally became aware of Bitcoin. It was actually a couple years back when it was around $600. I actually never took the time, all right? And this is my one single little regret here. Never took the time to hop on a chart. Never took the time to do that. We've personally been trading the markets. I've been doing it for a little over 4 years now, right? And he's been mastering this stuff alongside with me, you guys, during this time period. And we never took the time to sit down and just analyze the charts up until about a year or so ago. From this point onwards. So, I'm going to go ahead and jump into that. But before I do that, let's see what happened here and what is to follow, right? Let's see the patterns and the correlations and the trends that have been happening and figure out what can we expect. So the truth, essentially, right? Not some BS. That you're going to hear all over YouTube, that you're going to hear all over the news, right? The news doesn't have a clue as to how to trade, market, analyze charts. They don't have a lick of an idea, right? So here, you guys have been doing this long enough to where we understand how to read it, and we can professionally, consistently, and profitably trade this stuff, invest into this stuff, and figure out whether, hey, is this a good investment? Should we take it? Is it a good long-term hold? When should we get out? When should we get in, right? So with that, you guys, back here, let's start in the $16 mark where you start to see it hop up. So this was the first really noticeable movement, right? Even on a chart, we're on a weekly time frame, so each candlestick is 1 week long. On a chart, it hopped all the way up to about $164, and then it wicked all the way up to $260, right? Beyond that, it got rejected pretty hard, and it fell all the way down into the $50 area. That was the last time it hit that area, right? So what it did at this point was it retraced. It retraced the movement, and it did something called a retest, which is essentially it hit a particular price point for the last time, right? Beyond that, we have what's called a teacup formation. And I'm going to go ahead and draw this out. I'm going to use, let's see here, the arc. I'm going to go ahead and draw this thing out, and you guys are going to see how insanely similar its actions and its pattern movements are time and time again, right? So here is your teacup formation. Here down here is the vertex, right? If you ever studied parabolas in math class back in high school, and you always wondered how is this useful? It's not, except unless you're analyzing this stuff, it's a little bit useful, right? So parabola, right? The parabola. What's the parabola? Well, the lowest point of it, right, or the highest point of it, okay, is the vertex, right? So at the vertex is the lowest point of this quote-unquote teacup formation, right? We call it a teacup formation because there's usually a handle on it right here, and it forms a teacup before it continues on upwards. So the break of this officially was, and I'm going to go ahead and map this out, right in this area, right? So this candle, once it crossed this previous high point at $253.71 and it closed on this weekly chart up here, it broke out, right? So the break was at $320. So anyone that knows anything standard about technical analysis and trading, that would have been your entry point, right? And that would have been a very, very hard and rough entry point because, at $320, like you have to understand the long-term value in this, or chances are you're probably not going to invest too much. But let's just see what happened. So 320 was the breakout point, and from there it continued upwards all the way up to, like we said a little earlier, 1150, you guys, $1,150, and then 1150 really held that level. And then from there onwards, guess what it did? The exact same thing that it did before. Right? And the funny thing is, this isn't coincidental, right? This happens time and time again. So this is really what was able to give a lot of people a very accurate prediction. And I want to do something really quick here. I want to extend this downwards a little bit, and then I want to drag it all the way over here. Do you guys see how it popped right back down into that previous zone, retested the zone, and then spiked all the way back up? And notice that this overall movement took a lot longer, right? It took a lot longer to formulate. Now, why did it take a lot longer to formulate? Simply because, number one, this is the pivotal and essentially peak climactic area of where Bitcoin had first gained momentum. People had just gotten to really know about it. It was on the news maybe I think it was once or two times. So there was some very vague little rumors kind of going around. And then from there, obviously some negative news impacted it, and it started shooting downwards, right? It hit this point, the lowest point that it hit was back all the way down into the 150. right? All the way down into that 150, a quick wick up, and then it closed up into the 200s. So that meant once it closed up there, the $200 range level held, meaning it's not going to go back down at all, especially because it formed structure down into this area right here. This is where structure formed. I'm going to go ahead and highlight that in a blue color so you can see structure formed right here, and beyond that we see another break, right? So we see another break of this range here right at the $315 level. Beyond that, it continued to rise essentially almost in an exponential fashion. And if we look at lower time frames, you'll see it go a little bit slower, obviously, because it's more broken down. But on the weekly chart, you'll see it took its time, but it didn't ever come down to another area even remotely close to the 300s, right? Took its time a little bit, popped up here, popped down to 350, and then beyond that, it just kept rising and rising and rising. So I became aware of Bitcoin right when it was in these levels right here. So that, yeah, back in 2016, basically about a year ago, is where I became aware. Unfortunately, I didn't do the analysis on this thing. Otherwise, I would have noticed it right off the bat. And what happened beyond that point is it just continued to rise, right? So I got tipped off from a friend that said, hey, it's way too high. It's way too high. Don't buy it. You need to wait. You need to wait until it gets way, way, way lower. And that was not the case, period, you know? But hey, that's all right. We all get bad advice, you guys, and we learn from it, right? That's the whole goal. Learn from your mistakes. Take it onwards. Drive it onwards as forward learning experience. And guess what? Try not to make the same mistake twice. That's the goal. But I didn't take another look at this thing up until it was actually all the way in this area, right in the $1,000 range. So what ended up happening was I was trying to plan for a entry point, and the entry point kind of escaped me because this Bitcoin, understand, it moves very fast every single day, all day. It moves. Back then it would move, tens and tens and tens of dollars. So it'd move like 50, 60, 70, maybe $100 a day. Now it moves a lot more than that because it's all based on percentage increase increments, right? So back then I was trying to plan for an entry point right around this wick area in the 900s. Didn't quite make it, and it ended up popping off. I thought that we might see an extended rally where it pushed down from here all the way down to here, and it kind of dragged down like so. I'm about to draw it real quick. I really thought it was going to do something along the lines of this, where it pulled down into here and then it popped, and then eventually we saw the pop. But guess what? It's not what happened, right? It broke out, and I actually I got in right here essentially. So right in the 1400 range, and I've been holding since then. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a Bitcoin billionaire, right? And it's a little hard to buy a lot of Bitcoin that's multiplies up to $1 billion. It's not going to happen. There's a very few amount of those people, whether they got lucky or whether they predicted it, or they obviously looking back in hindsight, they're going to say, oh, I knew it was going to happen. They didn't, right? If they bought enough Bitcoin to where now they're billionaires, that means, dude, they must have had a lot of Bitcoin, right? So they didn't know. Nobody quite knew, right? They never quite know up until there's very, very, very certain predictional patterns. And the fact that this thing didn't really get charted heavily until the 2011 point is pretty hard to know. So anyways, as of now, that was my entry point, and I've just been holding it since then. So that was then, this is now. So what's going to happen now, right? What's the next expected move? My initial prediction was that it would hit about $5,000 by the end of the year. It absolutely blew past that. Why? Because number one, the teacup formation formed, and number two, it became mass. It started going under mass adoption, right? So if we go ahead and take this and then just duplicate it up, this would be the standard predictional point, right around the 2100 area. Now understand, this moves upwards in multiples, right? It doesn't move up just essentially, take the arrow and just drag it over here, and it doesn't move the same distance. It doesn't work like that. It moves up in multiples. So if we calculate the amount of multiples that it moved from 229 all the way up to $1,100, that's about a factor of 5, right? That's a 5 times increase. So if we do the same thing from about 1,000 and you increase it by a factor of 5, you're going to get roughly between 5 and 7,000, and we're taking slippage into account, and that is what we got. Right, initially at least, we saw a few dips right around the 3,000 level range, and then it popped up higher, and then we saw a nice massive dip here, right around the $7,000 range here, right? And keep in mind these are weekly charts, right? So it's not just one single day where it does this and then it pops back up. It's roughly a 7-day cycle. So beyond that, and then it started popping back up. So it came up to the 5,000, it got rejected once, just like the initial prediction of factor of 5. Then it rose again up into the 7,500 area, it got rejected again. And then beyond that, it just broke and it continued to go. And now we're seeing Bitcoin at a price of, as of this moment, 16,000. And as of today, you guys hit a high point of, at least on Coinbase, hit a high point of 19,300. So, questions, answers. One of the big questions, Bitcoin, is it a bubble? Here's the thing about Bitcoin, and here's how it works. Imagine trillions of dollars get put into Bitcoin, not just as investments, but more so as a way to exchange currency, as more like a bank, right? A lot of people think of Bitcoin as like, hey, we should use it to exchange and transfer monetary funds over from this place to this place to this place. And that's true, okay? That's true. That is how it partially works. But another perspective of it is people can use it as a bank, as of right now at least, right? Number one, the factor rate at which it's growing is insane. And number two, it's a safe place to store money, period, right? You're not going to get taxed on it, for one. At least not that they know, right? Number two, there's no crazy stuff that the bank is going to be able to do. They can't touch your money, so it's taking power away from all central banks. And number three, all these economies right now that are struggling, across seas, all over the place, guess what? The economies that are struggling, people are looking for places to hide their money. They're looking for places to put their money. They're looking for storage cells. But putting a little vault in your house and putting all your dough in there, it's not going to work for very long, because in all the places where there's crime, nuclear missiles going on, and all this madness, right, all this war, they're just going to break into the safe and steal your bread. That's not the goal, right? You got to store it somewhere safely, securely, somewhere where nobody else can touch it. Okay, so obviously everyone looks to the virtual online route to store it, so that way no one else has access to it, obviously unless they have your Bitcoin, password codes, whatever. Okay, so hopefully they don't. But people are using this thing as a bank, right? They're using it as a storage vault. And because they're doing this, because multimillionaires are now starting to adopt it, multi-billionaires are looking at it, pretty closely, and then just the mass population, mass media, it's all over YouTube, it's all over Facebook, it's all over Instagram, it's all over Twitter, it's all over every single social media platform, period. It's all over CNBC, right? Screaming, oh, it's going to be a bubble. No, it's not, right? That's the thing. People are relocating their assets and their funds from banks. They're relocating, right? This isn't something that's just going to disappear. This is something that's going to grow. Because they're relocating it, it's increasing its value exponentially, right? So imagine if you took all your savings accounts and just threw it into Bitcoin. And imagine if every single one of your friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, and every one of their friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, 7 levels out did the same thing. That's what's happening with Bitcoin. It's becoming massively adopted because it makes more sense to do it like this, for one. Transactions you can do all over the place, for two. Down the road, all the kinks are going to get worked out. Okay? Well, they're working on it now. All these other cryptocurrencies, altcoins are coming out in addition to that, right? As supplementation, they're all growing as well. And guess what? This is going to continue and continue and continue to increase. The market cap is going to continue to grow. It is not going to be a bubble. What you might see, however, is a retracement. So, where are we looking at for the retracement? We're looking at the $20,000 mark. And the reason why $20,000 is going to be a retracement point is because, first off, it's a very strong psychological barrier. When people think of numbers, they think of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, right? That's why 10,000, that's why 5,000 down here was a barrier. That's why 10,000 in this area, if we hop on the daily chart, you're going to see it right around this $8,000, $9,000 area, got hit, and then boom, 10,000. If you take a look at this wick, look at that. Hit 10 grand, went all the way up to 11, and then bounced right back down. Why? Because that $10,000 mark right here, it held it. That's a psychological barrier. So when it gets to $20,000, it's going to have some resistance temporarily. It's going to have potentially a retracement temporarily. But down the long run, we're looking at realistically, if it continues at this rate, we're looking at $50,000 midway towards the end of 2018 and even $100,000 in the next 1 to 2 years. Okay, because it's at the rate that it's going at, if it continues to go at that rate, which it most likely will because it's getting halved, right? So if you don't know about the Bitcoin halving, I'm not going to go into it in this video. Go look it up, go Google it. But the Bitcoin halving is going to occur in the next 5 years, roughly. Okay, and once that happens, the demand for this is going to go even higher, you guys. So forget about the whole Bitcoin bubble burst, okay? If you're looking to get into this, I would invest what you can, okay, without taking a massive, massive, massive risk. Because the smart thing to do would be invest on a retracement. Right now, it's playing around these levels, but we haven't seen a clear retracement yet. So what we're going to be doing, you guys, we're going to be keeping you updated as much as possible in these next coming days, weeks, months on what we're looking at and where there will be potential entries for Bitcoin that make sense, right? Rational points, rational placements. So with that, that is the analysis, that is the prediction, that is the forecast, that is the real deal, the pure essence, the true soul of what's going to happen with Bitcoin, you guys. Forget about all the slander, forget about all the BS, forget about all the people that have no idea what they're talking about, have never traded in their life before, don't know how to analyze charts, saying that, oh, it's a bubble. The reason they're saying that is probably because they're pissed off they didn't get in at $1,000 or $500 or, $20, right? Because everyone knew about this forever ago. We all kind of knew about it in one way, shape, or form. I'm sure someone heard it somewhere, whispered, okay, and a lot of people at least, did not take advantage of that. If you're one of the ones that did, I just want to say congrats, nice job, well done. If you're one of the ones that didn't, not a problem. There's always more opportunity. So in the future, we're going to be also talking about altcoins, some of the biggest things to get into in 2018 to be able to hold and capitalize and maximize your profitability in your bank account, in your life, right? To be able to sustain and create financial freedom to a point where you guys don't have to go out there and work 40 hours a week for the next 40 years of your life forever, okay? And be able to kind of create a lifestyle that you want through this as much as possible. So with that, you guys, subscribe, leave us a like, leave us a comment, leave us some of your thoughts, all right? And we'll see you in the next video within the next few days here. We're going to keep everybody updated. And as soon as the next point at which there is a feasible entry of worth investing, because right now it's a little bit risky, it's a lot risky actually, the next main point, we're going to make sure to keep you updated. With that, see you guys later. Thanks so much for checking out Axie Unlimited, and let's freaking rack this stuff up. Bye.
It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine, Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine, hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape pop.